I'm Steve with a Z, and if you're interested in buying the new Z car but not sure exactly where and how to do it, this video is for you. We're going to talk to somebody who does know and who you can actually call right now and get more information about ordering. So stay tuned. Here we go. So Shawn, first off, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. And today we're going to talk about the new upcoming Z car. And I know you. What dealership do you work at? Like, where are you and who are you? And tell me a little bit about what you're doing, and who you are, and where you're from.
Definitely. So first of all, my name's Shawn Stegall. I work at Orr Nissan Central out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. We're on the south side of Oklahoma City. We're pretty much the main hub dealership of our area. And the Orr Auto Group I work for, we're one of the largest privately owned Nissan conglomerates in the United States as well.
That's cool. So you figure into the equation of having buying power, if you will, when it comes to having unit allocation and that kind of thing with the new Z.
Yes. So after going over and talking directly with Nissan about exactly how allocations are going to work, they're going to use a pre-existing model on how they are going to ship the cars out. And just like every launch beforehand for the 21 year, everything is going to be kind of set in stone. There's not going to be any special ordering for the first launch, but afterwards, things will slowly begin to loosen up, I guess you could say.
Let's pause a minute. So the car's been, I mean, I have my PIN. It was launched. I was there. And in August, there's no press cars available. Nobody's driven these things. And it's like almost mid-November. They marched it out to SEMA. They've showed the car successfully. And to great fanfare. People love this car. They've showed it off at various car shows around the country. They haven't brought one in front of my house yet, but I'm waiting. I'll keep waiting for that one. But what's the next step in your eyes? Like, when will the press be able to get a hold of one of these?
The press side, I can't really speak too much on. Obviously, I'm not really affiliated with the press side of things. If I was to give just my humble opinion about things, I would imagine that all of these things will start to coincide with when we, as the dealer side, start to get a little bit more information about when allocations are going to be released, when Nissan is actually going to be releasing what we call the ordering guide for these cars.
So what's the ordering guide?
The ordering guide is basically what Nissan says is going to happen with the cars. Used to, it was we get the ordering guide and we have a select amount of units that we are allowed to order of various trims, whatever. Obviously, with the state of the world and the way the car market is right now, that's not really much of a thing anymore. So it's everyone's pretty much turned that into the allocations. Everyone is very familiar with that word. And so when the ordering guide is released, it's pretty much Nissan releasing to us exactly what the cars are going to look like. You're well aware that we get these cars at wholesale prices. That'll be introduced. All of that information will come to life then.
And so then we'll have general pricing.
Yes.
It's really interesting. I was at the launch again. I asked Dan Pass at Nissan, who I did an interview with. I'll put a link to, if you look for more information about the car in general, I'll put a link in the description for that video. You can go and watch it. But I asked Dan at the event, I said, well, what's the starting price? He goes, you're the first person to ask. I'm like, what? That's weird. We've been here for 3 hours. So the $40,000 thing seems like it's going to stick. Do we have any idea? Because I know a lot of folks are trying to figure out what that Proto is going to cost, and then what the sport. So it's performance and then sport. Am I right with that?
Sport then performance.
So sport, performance. The sport gets the non-LSD 6-speed and the same 9-speed in the same engine, and then the performance gets I guess it's a clutch type LSD, which I just learned about. So that's kind of cool. But final pricing, you think?
So as it currently stands, we are expecting. Now, I do want to say this flat out that all of this is still up in the air. Obviously, no one knows anything for certain until we get closer to time. But as everything is currently set, we are hoping that a January, February is when us as dealers will get information and the general public will get information.
Yeah, and so usually for people that are listening to this and wonder when you're going to start seeing videos of people drive them around and maybe the curb weight, probably somewhere in that neighborhood, that February timeframe is also when I would just personally guess that's probably going to happen. It will all kind of happen at the same time. Would you agree with that? Or so?
Definitely. Definitely everything, the things that we're missing, the curb weight, um, some specific dimensions about some things, some little details such as, with the performance, they say sport tune suspension, but there's no details of it. All of that information should start to be released around that time.
Let's circle back to like what you guys at Orr and what you're specifically doing. You're taking, it looks like you're fielding folks' questions in these groups, for free, basically, and giving people as much information as you possibly know. And you're speaking with people directly and putting them on. Are you putting them on a list? Is that so?
Yes. So the way that I personally am doing things, because again, every single dealership, every single individual salesman is going to do things their own little way. The way I'm trying to do it is I'm trying to keep everything as cohesive and streamlined as humanly possible, because I do understand that with the way the market is today, it's going to be incredibly hard for people to get these things quickly. And the C8 Corvette is probably the best example of what kind of nightmare can occur if everyone just starts, trying to jump over everybody to get one. Because I mean, I have a guy who he's pre-ordering a Z. He actually canceled his pre-order for a C8 Corvette because he's not supposed to get his until, what was it, August of 2022 or January of 2023. And he's already been waiting for 5 months, he said, which I think is just absolutely ludicrous. But the way that I'm personally doing things is I'm setting everyone's information aside. I just want to know generally what you're looking for, your general name, maybe a little bit about where you're at, especially because depending on how you want the car transported, you come and get it, we ship it to your house, we drive it, whatever works best for you. Just get all that general information, the transmission, trim, things like that. And then once we know exactly where cars are going to be priced at, what exactly is going to come on the car, because there's a whole bunch of cool things. Maybe the Sport doesn't come standard with illuminated kick plates. That's just a really simple add-on to think about. Or the Sport mode or the Sport model, it's not coming with the spoiler that's on the Performance. Little things like that to make the car your car. So that's effectively what the Z is. It's supposed to be a car for you. And so as soon as we get all of that information, that is when I will start taking this deposit that everybody kind of is already associated with pre-ordering and lock it in. And the reason I'm doing it that way is because the last thing I want to do is use one of our special order allocations that we're allowed to take, and then that car end up not getting ordered, or they end up dropping out, whatever the case may be, and we have to wait the time frame before we can get another one.
Yeah, like like ordering a red car with a blue interior.
You say that. I've already got one of those.
I bet. I bet you do. I bet. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Nissan does with when they give you all the information. If you're able to, how many boxes you're able to check and all of that. As an example, all of the bells and whistles with the highway driving assist and the auto cruise, if you will, and the blind spot mod, like all of that stuff usually comes in like a tech package on most cars. Will you be able to take that off? Will you be able to add it to a Sport? That, like, those are kinds of the questions that I have. Can you illuminated kick plates? Like, how is that handled? What options are going to be available? Yeah, it's just going to take time. And it's interesting seeing people really gripe about how long it's taking for information to come out. And I'm like, well, I mean, you're lucky you saw the car. Like, what would you rather want? Like, you would rather wait, like Acura is doing with, just releasing images of their new Integra and not showing it to you. Like, Nissan took that step and actually gave it to you. Like, they gave us what they're doing with the car, all the major metrics, with maybe the exception of the curb weight. But come on, let's be honest, it's not going to weigh 2,000 pounds and it's not going to weigh 5.
Exactly.
So it's going to be somewhere in between. So, you can figure it out. Look at, the 19 or 20 Nismo, and it's probably going to be somewhere in that ballpark. 35 or 3600 pounds. I think people focus too much. I know people focus too much on those little fine details. And
it's that exact reason that Nissan really doesn't want to give out a whole lot of that information, because let's be honest, you can't please everybody. In fact, the best example I think right now is exactly what's happening with Subaru with the new WRX launch. I mean, they on their Facebook video that they posted, they've disabled comments, and I believe that the video is even taken down now, just because people are so enraged by just the appearance of the car. They haven't really talked about the power plant or anything like that. And this is just the WRX. We haven't even touched on the STI. And Nissan understands that you have to be very light on your toes when it comes to giving out this information. And again, just like you said, if we're being 100% honest, they've handled this pretty phenomenally with how much they've given us the car. Like you said, back in August last year, we actually got to see the proto. Like, it was a driving, working car. It wasn't just some concept that was set aside at, SEMA or any other auto show. And back in August, like you said, they unveiled it in New York. I was blessed enough. I was at ZCon in Colorado Springs, and I got to be up there with the blue one that they had as a display. And everybody got to look. There was a Nissan representative there who was asking, or you could ask questions about the car. And furthermore, with the release of the spec sheet, I mean, they've given us a lot of information. There's a couple small things that we would like to know, but overall, it's been handled fairly well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the automotive journalists and press at large have given Nissan 5 stars or an A+ rating for the way that they've dealt with this. I think everybody's concerned and talking about the C8 release. And I mean, I know what my opinion is on that. When it comes time to actually releasing cars, how much of it, and you can talk about whatever you're free to talk about in terms of your own dealer's markup and what you guys are setting a cap and some of those things. But how do you think it's going to end up rolling out in the end?
So as it currently stands, looking at the history with all the other models that have released, the Pathfinder is probably the best example that I can compare the New Z to, which is kind of weird, but just stay with me. I promise it'll make sense. So with the launch of the Pathfinder, that has easily been the most desired and hard to come by car of the new lineup that Nissan has launched. And as it currently stands, we personally have had a cap at about $5,000 markup, which just like I remember I watched your last video and you were talking about how you're pre-ordering a Carnival and how, most dealers were talking 10 grand, minimum, which I found real funny because we do have a Kia dealership in our auto group that's actually in Oklahoma City, and they're the exact same way. Like they won't even humor anybody who's making offers at less than $10,000 over. So I know it sounds crazy, but we're trying to be as, honest with it as possible. It could be less. Who knows? Maybe Nissan has everything together. It definitely won't be more. Just like you and everybody else, I've set a cap at $5,000 markup, and that's pretty much where it ends. Everything can go down from there. I'm doing work with several different Z car groups across the United States, big ones like Z Society. I haven't quite gotten a hold of the president who runs the group yet, but I've talked with some people about it, and some small local groups as well, just as a way to help the enthusiast community.
So currently, let's walk people through what they can do. They can call you, and we'll put all your contact information up on the screen so people can get a hold of you guys, because you're willing to ship a car anywhere in the United States. So, and I think that's important for folks to realize, like, you can buy a car in another state, have it shipped to you, title it. You could sell a car to a customer that's in California. It gets shipped out there for, X to the X number of hundreds of dollars or $1,000, and it gets titled in California, and it's fine. And it's like a completely legal process. It's not that hard to manage. I've done it. It's not any big deal at the end of the day. And you guys probably are pretty adept at doing that, given that you're willing to reach out to the community and offer the service. You must have that pretty wired. So the Kia thing was really interesting. So yeah, I'm in Virginia Beach. I'm 4 hours away from DC and about 3 hours away from Raleigh, and I go down between here and Raleigh often for hockey games. And so I was like, but I'll probably get a better, and this speaks to what you guys are doing too. My initial thought was, hey, I'll call a dealership up in DC because it's much larger, like it's a major area there, right? Northern Virginia is, there's a lot of population. There's a lot of bigger dealers that sell more cars there that potentially could have more allocations. That's where I ran into the $10,000 above MSRP. And listen, having owned the Carnival for almost a year now, I'll tell you, it's honestly probably worth it in terms of value. Absolutely incredible. It's my favorite non-sports car I've ever. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
But 10 grand, I mean, that hurt. I just couldn't do it. Now, that being said, I would call up and say, hey, I see you have, this specific model in stock. I'd like to buy it. I'm ready to go. I'm already financed. Like, can I come up and get it? And they were like immediately like, just so you know, it's 10,000 over. I'm like, I'd give you, probably 3. Nope. No, thank you. And it was like, wow. Okay. So then I called the dealership down, probably about the size of you guys. I'm not as a group, but just the size of the dealership. I go down there, it's in a rural area, and they had no new cars for sale. I felt bad for these guys. It was a family-owned operation. They had nothing to sell. And I called them up and said, hey, I'll give you $2,500 on top of MSRP. And they said, sure, let's do it. And the next day I had it and I was shocked. So I did a video on that, like how to get an early allocation of anything that you're looking for. You got to call folks, you got to talk to them, line up your financing, kind of be appealing to them, if you will. Yes. And I kind of walked folks in the video through that because, I've done it in the past a couple times. And so in this case, what I'm hoping Nissan will do is not delay production, but delay the release enough so that they can actually stockpile some cars.
Mm-hmm. So that's the goal. That was supposed to be the goal for the Pathfinder. Obviously, massive, utter failure with that. The Pathfinder launch was a giant issue. In fact, it's just a good example of how bad the Pathfinder launch was. So we have a representative from Nissan come and they travel and go to dealerships in their area and they bring the new model into the showroom. They go over it with the salesmen and managers about this is how to sell the car. These are certain features. These are things that have changed on it. We didn't actually get that presentation until 3 weeks after the launch. Like even the individuals who were tasked with taking these cars out to dealerships didn't get them in time. It was a giant mess. But we're remaining very hopeful. That's all I can really say is that we're remaining very hopeful that everything looks good. Obviously, we have this huge issue with the port going on right now in California, but we can ramble on about the issues with the auto industry and where the clogs are for hours. But I'd like to kind of set some facts. And really, this is the part where I'd like to educate people about how things work on our side and with Nissan. So the first thing is that Nissan structures everything in the weirdest way possible. So everyone's familiar with the quarters in the year, and how they work. January typically starts your first quarter and December typically ends your fourth quarter. Well, the reason, and this is something I was worried about, because when Nissan said the production, even on the spec sheet, you see it says 2023 Nissan Z, which I was like, oh man, I know exactly what that means. So it's going to be launched in Nissan's, and I want to put that Nissan's first quarter, because the way Nissan's quartering system works is their first quarter actually starts in April and their fourth quarter ends in March. Don't ask me why it's done that way, but that's just the way that they have everything set up. So everything is looking so far that we're going to have or expect that April, May launch, maybe late into June, and it is confirmed that by no means they're not stretching any further than the second quarter. So, August, kind of in that range.
But that's their second quarter, not ours.
Yeah. It's weird. It is definitely weird. And like I was saying, with allocations, we're expecting to start getting that information January, February. And touching on the small dealership idea and ordering big versus small, this is, especially in the environment we're in, back 2-3 years ago, 100% would be the truth. Big dealerships, they had more cars, they got more cars, they sold more cars. It's just the way it worked. Currently, however, especially with the way Nissan's doing it, because they're trying to be fair even to the small mom and pop dealerships, like you were saying, that hardly have any new cars versus like Triumph is the biggest one I can think of around us. It's out in Dallas, where before all of this happened, they had like 600 plus new cars. Whereas, everybody's happy to have 10. But the way that Nissan is going to be basing the allocations for the New Z is going to be based off of GTR and, funnily enough, Turbo Ultima sales.
Excuse me? So for one, I wasn't even aware there was a Turbo Ultima.
Oh, it's a cool little car. I'll be honest, little 2.0 turbo. I mean, pretty fantastic little fun sedan.
I mean, I'm sure it is. I just actually had no idea that there was a turbo, and that's totally cool. So are you guys a GTR store as well?
Actually, funnily enough, we are the largest GTR dealership in Oklahoma. That's why, letting you and everybody else know, we're continuing to remain very optimistic that when it does come time, at the beginning, the difference between, the allocation of 7 cars versus the allocation of 4 cars may not seem too extreme, but as time goes on, that's going to make a really big difference. And yes, we definitely sell the most GTRs in Oklahoma.
So Shawn and I go on to discuss a lot more about the car, and we decided that we would break this up into 2 different interviews. The second part is already up, so all you have to do is click the link, and you'll be taken to it. It's another 20 minutes of interesting information about the new Nissan Z car. Please subscribe to this channel for further information about the new car and our other cars in the garage. And until then, enjoy the ride.